All right, and let's jump into Gardens of the Moon. So,
Okay, where do you want to start?
well, I think we'll always start with our initial impressions. I definitely went first last time in the first episode, so you can go first with an overall impression of what you thought of the first chapter.
Okay, well, overall impression is I really liked it. Um, should I give you why I really liked it,
Do
or?
you, man? Yeah.
Okay, well, the two main reasons why I really liked it is just how he introduces characters, and then lastly is just I have no idea where this story is going to go. Like, I have no idea how it's going to turn out. And that's what really intrigues me.
Right. Because I know. Well, obviously we know each other very well. Disclaimer there. But I know you really like stories that aren't so predictable,
Yeah.
especially uh, if they're up to this sort of caliber. Like if you get super invested into the writer's writing, but you find out, like, you've read books, I'm sure, where it is like that. You like the writing and maybe the story, but then you find out it's very predictable, and it sort of lets you down a little bit. At least that happens to me. You sort of I appreciate the writer more if they go for unpredictability along with their writing talent. I feel like the two go well together in elevating my appreciation for the writer.
Could you give an example?
I mean, I think a good. I don't know if it's the best example, but we talk a lot about Rothfuss. I think you could say some of it is somewhat maybe predictable, but I don't know. Like, it's not. There's a lot of talk about what's going to happen in the third book, and he's a very talented writer. So for me personally, my take is I think he will cleverly answer some things and not answer some in the third book, because I think.
Well, I mean, how about from the books you've read? Like, did you think while reading book one or book two they were predictable?
Yes and no. Like, some things were easily predictable, but especially in the second book, I really couldn't tell you, for some of the parts that were happening there. Like, and I think we both agree it's like we both agree he spent a long time on certain things and no time on some things in that second book, and I couldn't tell you, like, going into it while I'm reading it, what he was going to spend time on, and I didn't really know what I was going to learn as a reader. You know,
So that's the
the
unpredictability.
unpredictability for him, and I think it works a lot. I don't know. It's kind of a disadvantage for Rothfuss because a lot of people don't like it, but I tend to I like it. No, I don't love it, but he gives readers the chance to like, be unexpected or have an unexpected reading when they're reading the book of what's going to happen as far as where the plot is going. So
Okay.
I don't know if that really explains things well, but all that to say, in like one sentence, I appreciate writers more if they tell me, if they're saying it or telling a compelling story while also being unpredictable with the plot. That's all I had to say. Um, but yeah.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you.
I think those two go well together, and I just appreciate writers more if they do the two well together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but yeah, sorry, I'm really stepping in here. Like, continue. That was a very short impression. Um,
Well, I mean, we can get
oh,
more
we can
into
definitely
it, but
dive
it's
into
just
it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, but just as a brief, first impressions is I really liked it, but the only downside I would say is just it is so complex and it is definitely not an easy read.
Right. Well,
Um,
okay, yeah.
so, what's your initial?
I mean,
You excited for the future?
so yeah, I think this is one of the best books I've read in a long time so far. Like, I feel like we're both on the same page where we can't really predict anything, and the writing is complicated. I don't know if I would say it's extremely complex because I have read things that are not fantasy that are obviously more complex. But
Yeah.
it is complicated, so you have to be paying attention to every sentence in the story. So I really, really feel like I don't know. It's a very different read for me. Like I took basically a whole week to read this first chapter, and I just took it slow. Like obviously I could read it fast, but like I wanted to take it slow.
Yeah, I read it twice. I listened to it once, and then today I read it just to kind of refresh my memory on everything. And I gotta say, like the first listen through was more of like more for fun, just getting the story, understanding what's happening, and then the read through was much more me analyzing and asking questions. As soon as like a certain something that might have a question to it, I would write it down and be like, okay, is this going to get answered
Yeah.
in this chapter, or am I going to have to wait?
Yeah. I had the same reading basically. But yeah, I guess I'll sort of get into my impression, and then we can really get into things here because there's a lot in this chapter.
Right.
But I really like this. Like, I think because we sort of took it slowly, I focused a lot on the prologue and how complex it was, and I kind of forgot. Yeah, prologues, they're typically, they're complex, but as you read, typically as you further read the story, things get answered in some sense, and it becomes easier to read. And I found that to be true. I don't know necessarily if things are getting answered, but I found it a lot easier to read the prologue personally.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think also, I'm not sure exactly how usual this is, but the events of this prologue are almost normally it's kind of like a mystery, and it's something that gets delved into later in the book, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is answered right in chapter
Yeah,
one,
which I
it's
found so
like
unique.
a straight continuation.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I think in some sense I really like that, and in another it kind of leaves me a little disappointed too, because I expected this to be something that is integrated throughout the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed the prologue a lot, and so I can't say I'm disappointed entirely.
Yeah. Just to speak on that a little bit, I fully liked that he did that. I was like, because you're so right. Like, prologues usually, if you get an answer, usually it's not for a long time. So, I don't know. I really liked, because I knew that one sentence in the prologue was extremely important, and it was immediately touched on multiple times in this chapter. And I was like,
Right.
That I don't know. I think just because it's untraditional to start basically talking about things that are in the prologue in the first chapter, I think because of that reason, I like that he did that, because I think it's different, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge explanation why I liked it, but I think it's different. And we're not sitting there questioning, what's in the prologue. We're here right now in the action, which I really like.
Do you think he did that just because it's already so complex that it's just unnecessary to add another thing that he knows everyone will probably forget? But then just going straight into it, it's not really something you would forget.
I don't know if I can answer that because I don't know this author.
That's true.
So I don't know.
I think it's a good theory, though. I think it's an interesting theory.
It is an interesting theory. I definitely think, though, from initial impression, that Erikson is one that never underestimates the reader. So
that's true.
Like, I don't know if that was the reason, why we have the writing we have. But, anyways,
do you think one question? Do you think Paran, I think that's his name. Yes, Paran is the main character out of all these others. Do you think he is the most important?
Well, it certainly feels like that. As far as the story goes on, I mean, I think to say that he's the most important, I would say no, but I think that there will be multiple characters that are important. I think that's pretty evident here.
Do you believe he's going to be the main focus then? Maybe not the most important, but one we will see the most?
No. I don't.
Interesting.
I do not think that. I think, I guess we can just start delving in. Basically, before I start delving in, I really, really like this chapter, and I'm super excited to keep reading. Like, I wanted to just sit down and read this whole thing, but yeah, anyways. To delve into it, like, in this chapter, you see so much shifting of perspectives here with the characters. Yes, we get the most from Paran, but there was a lot, especially the opening with the fisher girl. That is extremely important. So that isn't just to speak me.
She's definitely the most interesting.
Yeah, so like I think Fisher Girl will be a very important character in this book, and for some reason I want to say that her character and Paran are going to be of equal importance, as we keep reading this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say I think the Fisher Girl is the most important.
Is the most, even over Paran?
I believe so.
Interesting.
I find her definitely the most interesting character for sure, and I think she has the most interesting journey in front of her, one that I will least expect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She like her whole journey so far has been unexpected. So yeah, I mean this is right at the opening of the chapter, so like just to talk a little bit of structure wise, like I really like this opening. Like I thought it was extremely clever how he started this first chapter.
Oh yeah.
Like
it flowed perfectly.
It was,
and just how he introduced characters.
Yeah, not only that,
completely made sense.
Not only that, it was also like the way that this is okay. So, and this is typical of epic fantasy, but like we're reading we're reading history, right? Like this is what it's like. We're reading a history book. That's almost what it feels like. And so, like, in our first glimpse...
I would say this is more entertaining. But
yeah. Oh, yeah, way more entertaining. But our first glimpse inside this history book that Erikson's writing is, like, we immediately see two people talking about one of the most important people in the world. And I think that is extremely effective because we learn about the world through dialogue. And it's extremely effective in this opening. Like, I was so, like, gripped by this opening between the Fisher Girl and the witch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Like, I think he did that so well to open it with dialogue. And I think we'll see that, too, just throughout his writing, is he's definitely dialogue-focused and not so much exposition. But it works very well. Like, he's done it very well in this chapter.
What I personally prefer.
Yes, and personally, I've read more that has long exposition, rather than dialogue. So getting into it is obviously some sort of a challenge, for me at least.
Right. It's definitely the norm because I think it's definitely easier.
Yeah. Yeah, but he does it extremely well. I mean, yeah, I guess we can keep talking about like the Fisher Girl has the most compelling journey ahead because we know the least. You know, we don't really know what's gonna happen with her. Um,
Do you think that she is now like partially possessed?
that's sure what it feels like. Like in, I do think yes. I think you're right. I think she, you know, there's something that happened when the witch lady, the old woman, the wax witch, I believe, Riga.
Yeah.
When she was she killed? I think she was.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
killed by a
she was killed
soldier
by a
for
soldier. Yeah,
holding the Fisher Girl's hair.
and I think you know because after that happens, there's the moment when the Fisher girl is leaving, where as a reader you're like, I hope she doesn't forget the candles. At least that's what I was thinking. But then she remembers one candle, right? And I think that was I don't know. I think because of that, because it seemed like at first like it was gonna just be wiped from her, but then she remembered. So I don't know if that really answers your question,
Well,
but
I don't know. There's definitely moments where it seemed like Riga like took over her and like spoke for her.
oh yeah, with the prophecy.
Yeah, and then like after that too.
Yeah.
Like the very last line that she says, prod and pull.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was just specifically thinking about the two departing, but obviously that's extremely more obvious than her taking a candle, which I think is also important, obviously. But
One of the questions I wrote initially was like, who were the souls
yeah.
in the candles? Like, immediately they're kind of dismissed by the two gods or sorcerers or whatever they are,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me feel like they weren't important. But like, I don't know. I still feel like there's probably something to it. You know, she says that she does this often. She takes souls or whatever.
Yeah.
But are these ones special in a way or not? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Um, I don't know if that'll be something that'll be touched on or not, but it does seem like it's important. But I mean, I had the exact same reading and question as you did, so I don't know. I don't have.
I also really want to
have an
know
answer.
what the cloak of lies is, and if that,
Yeah.
I hope that comes into play later. I really do.
Yeah. Yes. That was interesting too.
And that was part of the prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think another thing Erickson did well in this first chapter is, yes, there's new concepts, but he didn't overload us with these new ideas and not, you know, and they were unexplained, but we weren't overloaded. Like, I think, at least for me, when I read something in the beginning, in the first chapter, or if it's a short story, and the author's trying to introduce new ideas and new concepts, like they need to include not so many and some, you know, just hint at what they might be, and I think that's the best way of going about it.
Yeah. The very beginning with the Fisher Girl is the most compact, and then like once it goes to Paran, it isn't nearly as bad.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely you meet like, you know, the soldiers and then the adjunct, and once all of that happens, it becomes more dialogue and more character focused.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it kind of becomes an actual story of progression. You know.
yeah,
Things are actually happening now.
yeah.
The story's evolving.
I think that was one of the most important things, though, to take away from the opening of the chapter, is what you said. Fisher Girl seems to be somewhat possessed. I don't know about fully, but somewhat.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like, from what the witch was saying, it seemed like she's only there to help when needed, in a way.
Interesting. So you think when Fisher Girl, like, let's say Fisher Girl falls down the path, like, isn't her path, just to clarify, like, isn't her path to follow what Rigga did, basically? Like, is that what her prophecy is about?
Well, her prophecy is basically a warning to her, in my, like, how I see it, and like, because she tells her how to become free, right? She's like, if you want to live a free life, then you need to find the guy cloaked in darkness or whatever,
Right.
and then he will set you free. So I don't feel like it's necessarily saying that she needs to follow her path.
I don't know, but that could
But
mean
I'm sure
so many things.
I'm sure the witch has her own goals, though.
Oh, yeah.
I would be shocked if that wouldn't be the case.
I mean, like, becoming free could mean the Fisher Girl is sort of becoming free from this oppression that's going on in their society of magic, in a sense, by becoming a witch herself. You know, that could be some sort of symbolism going on there. I don't know. That could mean so many things. But I kind of think, like, I think you're right about being her being half possessed, and then I don't know. I can't say too much because we didn't get a whole lot. Like, literally, this opening part is all we get.
Yeah, it's the most interesting, though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it almost sounds like, I know you're not dismissing the rest of the chapter, but, like, I would say for me, I found her interesting, but I was most intrigued by Paran. Like, he's the character we follow the most in this first chapter, and, like, I found this...
yeah, I do feel an immediate connection.
Yeah.
More than I do with Fisher Girl. You know, he has a name, he has an actual job, and there's progression with him.
Okay, I'm gonna...
So you do make that immediate connection.
Yeah, I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit. Like, what do you think about the chosen names? Like, obviously those are first
Paran?
names. Because they mention in this chapter how they should use their chosen names or not,
Oh, yeah. I don't know, I was thinking that too, and I was just trying to, like, I was thinking of other books. I was like, is this going to be, like, Name of the Wind, where, like, or the Gentleman Bastard series, where, like, if you know the name, then you can control them? Or is it going to be something less serious about that, where they mean it's just, like, it's just their name, and now people know who they are, I'm not sure. I feel like it's going to definitely be more than that.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to have something to do with the magic, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to necessarily have something to do with magic, but I think that it's going to be something more than, just a polite thing to do, because it's Paran and Topper who are talking later in the chapter. And Topper, when they first meet, like, they're talking about, or he asks him, like, should I use your first name or your chosen name, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, you're talking about, okay, sorry. I thought you were talking about the two sorcerers that talk to the Fisher Girl. My bad.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, now I'm sort of covering the whole scope of the chapter here.
Yeah. Sorry, when you talked about names and, like, making a big deal about it, that's what, like...
Well, doesn't he capitalize chosen names? Or maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, well, I don't know if he does, but we do at least me, definitely get the impression that chosen names it serves some importance, and I want to just say, like, it's probably something to do with nobility, some sort of thing like that.
Yeah, I definitely, when I read it, I definitely just saw that part as their first name.
Well, I mean, they mention it a
chosen.
number of times. Like, that's obviously not normal. So when something's not normal, it stands out and it serves some importance.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying now.
Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, now we're sort of diving into the chapter as a whole. But, yeah, that's an interesting... There's a lot of little things like that, There's a lot in the first section that you were pointing out with the Cloak of Lies and whatnot, which are going to be very interesting. Another thing in this chapter that was interesting is this world has portals. That was an interesting thing I was not expecting. Where him and Topper...
Hold on. So back to the chosen name.
Oh, you're going back.
Sorry. Yeah. So going back to the two sorcerers that pick up the fisher girl, like they say, the main guy says he is going to choose her name. So
right,
that could definitely be what you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I did. It's hard to remember everything that happens in this first 3 pages.
And so I'm not sure if nobles can have gods or something like that choose their name for them.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of getting at there. Is there's something at play with chosen names, and I think it's more the nobility, and it could... I would say you're probably right, because I think the gods, or they somehow get their name from some outer source, and it's probably the gods, is my guess. But anyways, yeah, I was just transitioning.
There are names, and then there are names.
I was transitioning here to...
Sorry, you got me stuck on it.
No, it's important. Yeah. To portals. I found that somewhat surprising.
Yeah, there's just no magic, and then boom, full on classic magic.
Yeah. I don't know. Were you sort of thrown off a little bit there?
Yeah, it was definitely out of place, I would say.
Yeah.
It definitely just came out of nowhere. I didn't really have any big problem with it, I would say. The only real problem I had with this chapter... Well, I mean, do we want to get into that, or have you continue?
Well, I mean, I was just covering some of the most noticeable things and sort of our takeaways from the chapter. So we'll just get to the negatives after we sort of finish that.
Okay. I was just kind of going in order of the book of what happened, but
yeah, that's my bad. I took you out of that out of the normal way of breaking down any sort of reading, but I would, because we could spend hours and hours talking about this writing, because there's so much here, but I would say I really did like the opening to the chapter, but the parts I like the most is when Topper and Paran meet each other, and towards the end, everything from that point on to the end was just so much fun to read for me.
I would say my favorite scene was when he talks to
Lysine.
Lysine.
Yeah, yes. That was so funny, dude.
Yeah, dude, I laughed pretty hard.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, I really do like Ganos Paran. This guy is yeah, I don't know. He's obviously overly cocky.
Yeah, his personality though, I did not get that from like when he was first introduced.
Yeah.
And then like and then he just totally became that. You know, he became like this witty guy.
Yeah, that's
But I
true.
guess that's to be expected because of his surroundings at the time.
Yeah. I think he will always keep me interested because, it just, characters like that where, and it's common. It's not like we haven't seen this before. This is common. But, like, where we see a young, sort of naive character who thinks he could do anything almost. And who's like,
I
it's
know.
really, honestly, the best quality is, yes, you can have some cool action out of that, but like it's funny for me. Like I just think it's hilarious. Like especially the setting Erickson sets up here towards the end with the adjunct and the Empress. Like
Mhm.
but I guess one thing, and then I'll sort of let you talk, but like one more thing that I'll say is, which I found, and this is sort of a smaller thing, but with the adjunct, I found the whole part where Ganos went under her command. Like, I found that whole part very weird. Like, that happens at the snap of a finger. And because he wanted to, like, she wanted him back into, I can't remember what it's called, but back into where she's staying, the kingdom or whatever. Like, I don't know. It felt like I got the definite impression that the adjunct and maybe even the Empress make decisions very quickly and sometimes rash decisions. And I thought it was very interesting to point out.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought it was interesting that she did that to begin with. Like she was just like, "You're gonna be on my team," you know. But then like immediately after he talks with the Empress, she's like debating whether to throw him away or not.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand that power play. I must have missed something there.
No,
But
I don't think you missed much. I mean, that was kind of weird.
because he said something about being used as bait, and I just didn't understand what exactly her motives were for that, unless like I don't know, him being royalty was some sort of offense or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I thought she was on the same side as the Empress. So,
Light
no,
bulb.
because she was talking about. Sorry, I'm like thinking out loud. I guess he was complaining about having to meet the one guy who you're just talking about, who he goes through the portal with.
Topper.
Topper, yes. It was near the end.
Where are you talking about?
Sorry.
I don't know. There was definitely this part when they first are meeting. No, I don't think this is what you're talking about, but like when Paran and
It's when he's in the room with her at the end. That last scene when they're together is like what I'm talking about, and he's like says, "Was I just a distraction or something like that?"
oh.
And I just didn't. And then like it made it seem like he was going to be just put somewhere random in their army, whereas before she was saying like he was going to be directly under her. And then like she's debating at the end whether or not to keep him on the team or not, and then she eventually does, and that's why he goes home.
Right.
So I just didn't really understand that too well, like why she would invite him and then toss him.
Personally, I don't know. I didn't have the same. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I read it as the adjunct was going through normal procedure for how a soldier comes into the army. That's what it was. Like he has to go through this testing and whatnot. Like that was their whole conversation at the end. Is like he's going to be going through all this stuff, and it was most, and before that, to just touch on what you're saying, it's mostly I read it as almost a flirtatious encounter between the two. Like, she's playing with him.
Well,
obviously,
she had like googly eyes for him before, like when they first met.
Yeah.
But then it really seemed like...
Well, it's for the captain, actually.
He was going to help her solve this mystery, and that's why she was calling him to join him, But, I mean, I guess...
Well, yeah, we don't know that, actually. We don't know if that's the actual motive behind him being called up, into her...
Oh, yeah.
army.
Well, it definitely had something to do with his name rather than his looks, for sure.
Well, it seems like Ganos isn't a bad-looking man.
Yeah,
he's super young.
There was just one reference where, like, where it says that his face was not bad to look at or something like that from her perspective.
Yeah, it wasn't like that bad as how you said it. It was more like his face was easy on the eyes, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely think it's just an interesting thing that we're talking about. Like, what is Ganos' role, basically? Like, why is he being chosen and taken into under the wing of the adjunct?
Right.
It's an interesting question that it will get answered. So...
It will. Do you know that for certain?
There's typical plot things that always get answered, and that's going to be answered. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
sure it will.
Really weird if we go through the whole book, it's a mystery why he was chosen, which would be an interesting way of taking the book that I was not expecting at all.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's like the most important thing either. Right? Like you said, this might just be a whim of hers.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards it's not, but who knows? We're in the first chapter. Like, we don't really know.
Yeah, if I was to make a guess, it would be like she realized who he was and she's willing to use him for some certain thing in the future. Like, it's not entirely just a whim. Like, she can see how he can be beneficial later on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's why another thing, like, if she sees that immediately, like, why would she debate to whether to just toss him away,
Yeah, it's a good point.
And have him go
it's
through.
A weird,
have him go
it's a
through.
weird part. Is that your negative of the chapter?
No, that's not my negative.
Okay.
The only real negative I have is I feel like the gods did more damage trying to destroy that whole town and all of the army guys just to make it so that the fisher girl and her father go unnoticed. Like, their disappearance goes unnoticed. Because, like, it's immediately found out, basically. Like, and I was just like, wait, that's kind of lame. Like, it seemed more likely that they could just take the girl and pay off the father or whatever, like what they said they were going to do. Whether that was a metaphor for something else, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Totally could have been, but like, it just seemed odd that they would immediately go to that drastic measure. And I know that the other guy was definitely a little trigger happy, but the smart thing to do probably would have just been to take her, because who's gonna notice a fisher girl disappearing?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. That's another thing we don't get fully explained as well. Like, yeah, what you're saying, I do agree with. It is weird, but that was kind of one of the early mysteries in the chapter, is like, how did all of this destruction arise? And yeah, I don't know. I would say we didn't really get a complete answer yet.
Well, it was from his dogs.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's not a full answer. Like, You think like the dogs, they just like, what is the reason behind the destruction? You think they just went and destroyed it?
Well, they wanted to keep the girl secret.
Right. Like, see, you're coming to reasons that we don't know necessarily. Like, maybe that was hinted at, or maybe I'm wrong, but like, for me, when I was reading this chapter, I didn't get like like a clear answer as to why this is happening. Like, I didn't really know, like, we're following Paran as he goes about the adjunct's duties or whatever, but I didn't really know like exactly what he was going to be doing, and why this all came about.
Wait, what do you mean by Paran? Because this all happened because of the Fisher girl.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I know. What I'm saying is your reason as to the dogs and the gods. Like, I don't think I don't think we were given the complete answer. That's all I'm trying to say. It's like it was only touched on.
Okay.
Like, I would be wary in saying that was the full, reasoning behind it all. I mean, maybe it was, which seems really odd.
Well, I think they were searching for the witch. Like, that was their initial goal. And then they realized that from their viewpoint, the witch was actually rather weak. And that's what disappointed them. But then they met this girl, and they probably saw her potential in magic for whatever need they need in the future, right?
Yeah.
And that's why he makes that decision to tell her his name, which is also why he needs her now to come with them. And clearly he needs to make that he needs to keep this a secret because they're being hunted down or something.
Yeah.
And so they kill all those people to hide that fact.
Yeah, that seems ridiculous.
Like, I don't know how much more. Like, I'm sure it will be come to play later, but I don't think it really will be anything that gets explained a lot more than that. Because I feel like he hinted enough and explained enough to come to a reasonable conclusion as to why they did that.
Yeah, that's true. I think it'd go either way. I think we'll learn the motives. Like, I personally think we'll learn the motives behind it all. Like, this will not be the first destruction for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we'll learn by studying for future destructions. We'll learn the motives. Why.
But I don't know if it will be because they are now searching for someone else. Because I think they found that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theory. So,
but
we don't know. I mean,
we'll see if I'm right.
We don't know. Yeah,
we'll see.
Obviously, the Fisher Girl is important. That's the main takeaway, from the beginning, at least. Yeah. So that was definitely.
So that was my really only negative.
Yeah, you really, really touched into stuff that was not on the page, which is really interesting. Like, you really went further than.
Well, what part did you think was not on the page?
No, I mean, like, you really touched on something because that part is only 3 pages, maybe. Like, the whole part of the opening. And then the people come along and get her, but I don't know. It just seemed
the people don't come along. She goes along with them.
Yeah. Well, they're right there on horses, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like,
who are you talking about? Because she
talking
goes
about
away
like
with the gods.
Colin and
she's going away with someone else.
The 2 other soldiers. Remember, like, when the one soldier with the mace shows up? Like, I don't know. You seem to have some clear takeaway, and I do not. And I read this really closely. Like, I wasn't
so
given
the last
a
thing,
reason why
the,
this destruction
the
happened.
last paragraph is she's being taken away by the gods.
And what page is this?
36.
That's in your copy.
Cotillion hesitated at her strange comment. Then he shrugged. The shadows whirled out and engulfed the girl. Their cold touched her mind fell away.
See, okay.
Down into darkness.
I literally read... So, this is the thing I don't know, because I don't know Erickson as a writer, but I read this as a metaphor, you know, as more of a metaphorical reading. So I didn't know exactly what was happening here. So, yeah, you did touch on something that was really, really minor. And it could have major implications, but, like, I thought it was one of the most beautifully written things in the whole chapter.
Right, but you realize that now she's with the gods, right? She's not with the army.
How do you get that? Where do you see that?
Because she's being taken away.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
With them.
Like, because there's no implication here that these, so this is how I read it.
Like, everything they're doing is to take her away.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Like,
I get that, but I didn't
them.
know exactly who these people were. These people right here. Call it Cotillion and Amminus. Like, I don't know.
Right, they say themselves are... They say that they themselves are gods. It's not a bad thing, lass, to be the pawn of a god. Like, they're saying that she is now their pawn.
Yeah, see, that's all your interpretation. Like, I think you could definitely be right, but I did not read it like that at all.
Like, she's ideal. The Empress could never track her down.
Yeah, I think from what I read out of this is there is it's very evident from even the prologue that there's and we see that there's 2 towns that haven't been corrupted in this, 2 free cities. So there's people that are obviously going to uprise and, go against the Empress and whatnot. So I didn't, maybe these people are gods, and maybe you are right, but I didn't infer that necessarily. I mean, I usually, I'm definitely going to cut some of this out because we spend too much time finding things, but, like, usually I don't take one interpretation until I know absolutely that's, like, the right one to take.
I don't know, I'm pretty sure...
Because all you get is you get a metaphorical ending here, is from what I read, is you get a metaphorical ending. Maybe it's not, but I read it as that way. And we don't know because we only read the first chapter. And then...
Yeah, I really don't think that's metaphor.
I mean, maybe it's not. But...
Because, like, clearly these guys have magic. Like, the dogs just disappear.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them gods.
Appear out of nowhere. I don't know if these guys are legitimately gods or if they only see themselves as gods. Because they're called sorcerers by the lady, the adjunct.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I definitely, that's definitely where we had a big misunderstanding. Because you're saying they were gods, and I didn't think that they were gods at all.
Right, and I'm saying the gods are also the sorcerers.
I mean, I don't get that at all, but that's an interesting interpretation. I mean, I haven't read, we've only read this much, so, like, it's just theories.
Or these guys are sorcerers that are under the influence or doing actions for some sort of god. But I still think they are now taking her in to be that pawn for a god.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to manipulate her how they see fit.
Yeah, see, that's a whole interpretation that's not on the page.
I also think Cotillion might be the sorcerer that's cloaked in darkness or whatever.
Yeah.
That is said in the prophecy. Lord, don't spawn in darkness, whatever that is.
Yeah. It's definitely a possibility. That's interesting because, yeah, I mean, that's an entire interpretation that I definitely didn't have. Like, I definitely read these as sorcerers who were going to uprise. Like, they're working on an uprise against... Because I read this almost as a dystopian. You know, they're sort of uprising against the current government.
Right, I definitely think that they're definitely enemies of Lacine, for sure.
Yeah, there's no indication that they themselves are gods, or they're even working for anyone.
I think they are kind of above everything, though. Like, they just see her as, like, a thorn, you know, in their little toe or something like that. That's definitely how that one character sees them. And then the other character, Cotillion, he definitely sees her as more of a threat, but
I mean, your theory could definitely be correct, because I do wonder how the gods are going to tie into this all, but I don't know enough to say, especially with Erikson, because I think he's an extremely talented and clever writer. Like, I don't know enough to say what exactly their role is, and just to immediately paint it as black and white, like them on one side, Empress on the other. You know, that's, for me to say that, I can't really say that yet because I don't know enough. But it's definitely a possibility.
Well, I don't think they're the only ones, obviously. I just think they're on their own side. You know, they're not necessarily against Lacine, you know. They are definitely not on the same side, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. It's an interesting thing that we're going to figure out as we read it further on. It was just confusing when you were referring to your own interpretation as, like, this is what happened, and I was super confused because I didn't even read that.
Well, I mean, I do think the ending is not a metaphor at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's...
I don't even know how you... Like, what exactly does the metaphor mean for you? Because I didn't even...
It seemed like... I don't know. I think I definitely lean on the side that I'm wrong, because I haven't read a whole lot of epic fantasy. So, and especially dealing with this much magic, like, so it definitely seems like this is a literal thing happening. But when I read it as more of a metaphorical thing, because I do agree with you. She is somewhat affected, maybe possessed, from the Wax Witch, and I thought from the Wax Witch, what was going on was happening at the end here. Like, it seems to me that, you know, it says at the last sentence, her last fleeting sensation was of the soft wax of the candle in her right hand, and how it seemed to well up against the fingers of her clenched fist. You know, it seems to me that this ending here is something to do with her, the fisher girl, and how she's going to be possessed, and what her powers will essentially, or, you know, in the future become. And she's obviously angry at what happened.
I mean, it could definitely be a metaphor, but I think that this is something that actually happens.
Yeah, I mean, two very different interpretations, and none of us know the true answer yet, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, so to sort of wrap up, there's so much going on in this first chapter, obviously. Like, yeah, I guess this is what you get when you read somewhat complex epic fantasy. is you're in for a lot to happen. Yeah, there's also a lot that we definitely didn't touch on, but yeah. Any other dying words for this chapter?
Say that again. Any final words?
Yeah.
No, I think chapter 1 though was. I'm just glad that we're reading this book. I guess it has been a while that I've read a book this good.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Or something that is made me want to continue it.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like, this is the potential of epic fantasy. Like, literally.
I mean, I don't want to. This is just the beginning, though, so I don't want to, like.
Praise it too much, yeah, but.
Speak to. Yeah,
I'm definitely not
soon.
saying that. I'm just saying, from what we read in the prologue and the first chapter, like, literally the word epic can be used to its full meaning. So.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny last episode where, like, we've only read, like, 2 pages. And that was just the prologue. And we're like, this needs an adaptation.
Well, it could be it could be adapted into a scene, obviously. But the opening was very cinematic, and definitely the more we read this, the more, at least I see, like, a lot of change would have to happen if it was adapted into another medium.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters. I don't know how they would actually be able to do that.
Yeah. I think, like I said, earlier, the ending was my favorite part. Because, like, throughout the whole chapter, it is mostly dialogue, and the beginning is very important, and then it transitions into a totally different pace with just dialogue, and then at the end we finally slow down as Paran goes back home, and it was just like, for me, like, it was a really good ending to the chapter. Like, I would say, like, the structure and pacing was definitely more on the chaotic side. But then the ending, like, bam, he's like, okay, the chapter's ending now. Like, we actually get some settling down here and description of his upbringing and his childhood a little bit. I don't know, I really liked it, connected with it personally.
Yeah, I would say there's like this one character switch that had, like, less than a page, or maybe it was only a page. Sergeant Aragon, like, he had such a small role.
There wasn't too much about him.
It wasn't even a page. But, like, he was in there, and I'm like, why is he in here, Is he gonna be super important later on?
Yeah.
It was just kind of random. Like, everything else had, like, this flow and everything connected,
Yeah.
And then, like, this guy just, like, came out of nowhere and was plugged in.
Yeah, it was very random. It reminds me of Moby Dick. Like, I know you haven't read Moby Dick, but there is such a big cast of characters, and you will just see some perspectives of characters briefly, almost like that. But the more you read it, the more obviously you understand why it's there. So hopefully we'll get some understanding, just not randomly thrown in. Oh, just in case you're wondering, this guy's doing this.
Yeah, and he's just sitting down, and a little girl comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely delved into a lot, and I think it's going to get even longer as we continue. Especially chapter 2.
How long is chapter 2?
Chapter 2 is the second to longest chapter, I believe, because I looked at it. But it might be like something around hour 40, but it as far as listening to it, it's definitely a longer one. Yeah.
81.
Highly recommend this read so far, though. I have a bunch of quotes that I took out from the writing that I just loved. I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much as we'll transition into movies, but there was a lot of hints at things and a lot of very well said things.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there was definitely one that definitely stood out to me the most. Oh, beware of shadows bearing gifts. That one made me think a lot.
I thought of themselves as
I thought of
the shadows.
I thought of specifically the guy who was like, I can't remember his name, but was described, to some extent with having shadows in his hood.
Right, and that's and then again, wasn't the guy in the prophecy the man cloaked in shadows or darkness?
Yes, I think you're correct. Yeah. So it's going to be a play in shadows and darkness throughout the story, which is going to be exciting.
Oh Lord, I keep saying cloaked, but it's spawned in darkness. Cloak of lies. That's what that's why I keep saying that.
And then of course one of the best quotes of the chapter: with every saddle bounce, he felt vertebrae crunch. I was
really
like,
oh
wow. When I think that was actually like one of the first times you get a hint at Erickson's comedic tone that he puts in here occasionally. And I was like, okay, that was a good line. Like, that was a good one. And then we get full-on comedy when Paran goes into the Empress's chambers or whatever, or the hallway, or throne room. That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you.